Was Diff'rent Strokes cursed? What really happened to Corey Haim? Here are some of the former child stars we've lost over the years. Skye Bartusiak began her acting career at 6 years old in the 1999 three-part television adaptation of Stephen King's Storm of the Century. A year later, she appeared in high-profile projects on the small screen, with minor roles in Frasier and Law & Order Special Victims Unit. That same year, Bartusiak starred in the Mel Gibson-led war drama The Pettiet, in which she played Susan Martin, the youngest of the protagonist's daughters. 2 years later, she returned with a memorable role in the Kiefer Sutherland-led drama series 24, where she played Megan Matheson. Most of Bartusiak's most memorable performances occurred during her youth, as her career was tragically cut short in 2014. The actor had suffered from intermittent seizures since birth, and they returned days before she was found unresponsive in her family's home on July 19th. Paramedics were unable to resuscitate her, and she died at the age of 21 in her hometown of Houston, Texas. Speaking to CNN, Bartusiak's mother stated that the paramedics were working on her for 45 minutes before her death, adding that she had, quote, lived such an amazing life. Shockingly, it was later revealed that the seizures hadn't caused her death, as originally thought. Instead, she had died of an accidental overdose.
My name's Littlefoot. Mine is Tucky. Yep, that is what it is. Yep.
Though her life came to a tragic and premature end, Judith Barsi appeared in an impressive number of iconic projects. On the live-action side, she most famously starred as a young Thea Brody in 1987's Jaws: The Revenge. She did some work in animation as well, voicing Ducky in The Land Before Time and Anne-Marie in the film All Dogs Go to Heaven, which was to be her final role. Additionally, she appeared in a handful of television episodes, playing Bertie in an episode of the 1985 Twilight Zone revival, and a younger version of Tracy Gold's Carol in 2 episodes of Growing Pains. Judith Barsi died in a murder-suicide on July 25th, 1988, at just 10 years old. Worse still, she died at the hands of her own father, who also killed his wife, Judith's mother, before taking his own life. In light of this horrific incident, details emerged that revealed her home had been a place of abuse for years before that terrible night. Austin Majors achieved fame as a child star by just 4 years old, thanks to the hit series NYPD Blue, in which he played Theo, the son of Detective Andy Sibowitz. During this time, Majors was also cast to provide the voice of a younger Jim in the 2002 Disney film Treasure Planet. The actor would go on to appear in one-off episodes of ER and NCIS, before experiencing a career slowdown. He quit acting at the end of the noughts. Unfortunately, it seems that things got worse for Majors after his screen career ended, and he soon found himself facing substance abuse issues. In a story that's tragically seen far too often in the world of show business, the former NYPD Blue star was found dead on February 11th, 2023, with major news outlets reporting that the cause of death was a fentanyl overdose. He was 27 years old. While not the youngest star to die before their time, Major's death still underscores how serious the issue of drug abuse can be in this industry. It's a rare achievement for actors to land a hit on their very first theatrical outing, but Brad Renfro did just that at the age of 11. Renfro starred in The Client in 1994, alongside legendary actors Susan Sarandon and Tommy Lee Jones.
Fry you up just like a piece of bacon.
You're the only pig around here.
The film was a certified success, and his acting career took off from there. Unfortunately, the pressures of stardom had disastrous effects on Renfro, who wasn't even a teenager by the time he became famous. Halfway through his career, and after a number of encounters with the law, it became clear that the then teenaged actor had begun using drugs, which would prove to be his tragic undoing. In the early hours of January 15, 2008, at the age of 25, Renfro was found dead in a Los Angeles apartment, in what was later ruled an accidental overdose by way of heroin intoxication. Having been born with dwarfism, Josh Ryan Evans was able to portray children and even infants well after most actors would have aged out of the roles. Though he only spent 6 years acting in both films and television, the late actor starred in several noteworthy projects. He first appeared on the 90s sitcom Family Matters, playing ventriloquist dummy Steville. From there, he had a recurring role in the drama series Passions from 1999 to 2002, and performed in a number of voice acting roles in popular shows, such as Hey Arnold and Rugrats. For his final and perhaps most memorable film role, Evans appeared in the 2000 adaptation of How the Grinch Stole Christmas, in which he played an 8-year-old version of the Grinch in a flashback sequence. Unfortunately, Evans suffered a congenital heart ailment and had to undergo numerous surgeries throughout his life. While he once recalled that the frequent recuperation periods he went through post-surgery inspired him to begin acting, the condition tragically killed him at a very young age. Evans was pronounced dead at 20 years old on August 5, 2002, while undergoing another treatment for his condition at a hospital in San Diego. After getting her start on television in a one-off episode of Fantasy Island, Heather O'Rourke scored a regular role on the 10th season of Happy Days at the age of 6. On that show, she played Heather, the young daughter of Ashley Pfister. Later, O'Rourke received a Young Artist Award for her appearance on the 80s sitcom Webster. However, it's not her work in television for which O'Rourke is best known, but her appearances in a certain iconic horror trilogy.
They're here.
The actor famously starred in all 3 entries in the Poltergeist trilogy as Carol Freeling, the youngest member of the much-tormented Freeling family. Sadly, the last 2 years of O'Rourke's life were plagued with medical issues, which began with a misdiagnosis for Crohn's disease in 1987 and a subsequent emergency surgery the following year. Complications from that surgery led to her sudden death at 12 years old on February 1, 1988. The cause of her untimely death was officially stated as cardiac arrest after suffering a bowel obstruction mid-surgery. A handful of minor roles defined actor Rob Knox's acting career, beginning at the age of 14 with bit parts in the British crime drama The Bill and an appearance as an extra in the 2004 summer blockbuster King Arthur. But the film that the actor is likely best remembered for is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, in which he played Ravenclaw student Marcus Belby. This should have been a huge stepping stone in his career had the movie not been released over a year after his untimely death. On May 24, 2008, 18-year-old Knox and his brother Jamie were involved in an altercation with another patron at a bar. The brawl quickly escalated and turned violent, ultimately ending with Knox coming between the knife-wielding attacker and his brother. He died in the encounter. The murderer, one Cole Bishop, was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison in a case that attracted a great deal of attention in the United Kingdom. Even though Knox died over a decade ago, it hasn't been forgotten, especially by his brother Jamie, who named his firstborn son in honor of his late brother. Many young stars have cut their teeth on the Disney Channel, and Lee Thompson Young is no exception. His promising career began with the titular role on the famous Jet Jackson, a meta-series that saw his character balancing a normal teenage life with one as an actor on a hit TV series.
I don't let my friends down, and I'm always there for the people I love.
Several years after that ended, he landed a supporting role as Chris Comer in the sports drama Friday Night Lights, and later a role in the less than enthusiastically received sequel The Hills Have Eyes 2. Later, Young would find success in the crime drama Rizzoli and Isles. Despite what appeared to be a promising career from an actor well on his way to success, Young was struggling internally. On August 19, 2023, at the age of 29, the star died by suicide. After the tragedy, Young's family has talked openly about their loss, with his mother stating in an interview with WIS, "In his late teenage years, he was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I noticed some periods of sadness, some of a person's inner life. You really don't know." A foundation has since been created in Young's name by his surviving family, who hope to help others who are suffering like he did. A year after breaking into acting in 1990 with appearances in Star Trek The Next Generation and Doogie Howser MD, Christopher Pettiet enjoyed some genuine career highlights. First up was a performance in the teen dark comedy Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead as Zach, one of a handful of teens left to their own devices for the summer after their elderly babysitter turns up dead. A few months later, he joined the cast of the Western series, The Young Riders, during its third and final season, cast as the infamous outlaw Jesse James. Pettiet would go on to appear in a number of other films and television series throughout the decade, from Baywatch to Sequest DSV. Sadly, on April 12, 2000, Pettiet died of an accidental drug overdose at the age of 24. At 80 years old, just 1 year into his acting career, Adam Rich landed the role that would make him famous. He starred as Nicholas in the comedy drama series 8 is Enough, a show about stressed-out parents Tom and Joan Bradford tackling a life with 8 children.
He's the greatest. He's practically a superstar.
Rich starred in plenty more projects through the decade too, including a lead role in Code Red and voiceover work on the Dungeons & Dragons animated series. It can be difficult for child stars to continue the successes of their youth into adulthood, and this rang true for Adam Rich. After the 80s, he made an appearance in a single episode of Baywatch before almost completely retiring from the industry. In 2003, he made a guest appearance in Dickie Roberts' former child star, which would wind up being his last time in front of the camera. Unfortunately, Rich soon wound up on the wrong side of the law. With a pair of arrests in 1991 and 2002, he later entered rehab for drug addiction. Nearly 20 years later, on January 7, 2023, Rich died of a fentanyl overdose. Though her career as an actor may not include the most recognizable titles around, Ashleigh Moore still carved out a comfortable niche during her time in the industry, first appearing on the children's adventure series The Odyssey as a companion to series lead Keith. She went on to appear in a handful of television films, such as Liar Liar and Family of Strangers. Finally, in 1995, Moore landed her first theatrical release with Now and Then, where she played the younger Chrissy DeWitt, one of 4 friends who returned to their old stomping grounds of Shelby, Indiana. Despite her promising start to her career as an actor, Moore had effectively quit acting by the turn of the millennium. Sadly, nearly a decade after vanishing from the spotlight, her life was cut short on December 10, 2007, resulting from a fatal overdose of heroin. The former child star was just 26 years old at the time of her death. By the early noughts, musician and actor Jack Black was well on his way to becoming a household name. Black's rise to fame took place thanks in part to films like the cult classic High Fidelity. Just a few years later, School of Rock came along, and while it wasn't quite High Fidelity, it was still a hit. This time, Black was cast as Dewey Finn, a floundering musician who reinvents himself in the classroom with a gaggle of elementary schoolers at his side. Among them was Kevin Clark's Freddie Jones, the drummer for their unlikely band.
Freddie, what do you like to do?
I don't know. Burn stuff.
Though the 2003 comedy remained the only acting credit to Clark's name, it seemed his passion for music was with him to stay. By 2021, the former child star had become a member of a brand new band that performed in and around Chicago. Sadly, however, when he made headlines on May 26, 2021, it wasn't for his music. While riding his bicycle late at night, Clark was struck and killed by a motorist at the age of 32. After the incident, his mother Alison Clark told the Chicago Sun-Times, "He told his bandmates just yesterday, 'You know, this is finally the life I want to live, and we're going to make it. You're my musical family, my family, and we're all going to make it.'" It's not uncommon for the children of superstars to take after their parents and try to make it in the world of Hollywood, and this was a path that Sylvester Stallone's son Sage embraced at a very young age, making his cinematic debut in Rocky V, in which he mirrored reality by playing the son of Rocky Balboa. He would once again star alongside his father in the 1996 film Daylight, albeit with a more minor role than Rocky V. Later on in his career, Sage would try his hand at directing with the short film Vic. Soon after, however, tragedy struck the Stallone family. On June 13, 2012, the 36-year-old Sage was found dead in his Los Angeles home. As an autopsy report in late August of that year revealed, he had suffered advanced coronary problems that led to a heart attack. Though he began his acting career at the age of 9, starring alongside Kiefer Sutherland in the 2008 horror flick Mirrors, it would take a few years for Cameron Boyce to truly make a name for himself. By 2010, he had found a supporting role in the irreverent Adam Sandler-led comedy Grown Ups, as well as its sequel, Grown Ups 2. On the television side of the industry, he'd seen even greater success, taking a leading role in the Disney series Jessie. He'd later star as Connor in the Disney XD series Gamer's Guide to Pretty Much Everything, and play Carlos in the Descendants series of Disney TV movies. By the time he turned 18, Boyce had made quite a name for himself as a performer, but both his career and his life would soon be cut short. Boyce had suffered epilepsy since he was a young child, and on July 6, 2019, he died in his sleep after suffering a sudden epileptic seizure. Despite being only 20 years old when he died, Boyce's castmates have often recalled the impact he had on them.
He made me such a better person. He would teach me, he was younger than me, and he would teach me something every day.
Over the nearly 10 years it was on the air, Everybody Loves Raymond managed to rise above the competitive genre of sitcoms that existed at the time, climbing to over 22 million viewers by the turn of the millennium. There's no arguing that the series was a hit. The sitcom revolves around Raymond Barone, a Long Island sports writer who struggles to handle his career, family life, and his burdensome parents across the street. Among the lovable cast was Sawyer Sweeten, who portrayed Raymond's son, Jeffrey, across all 9 seasons. Though Everybody Loves Raymond was easily the most iconic entry in his brief career, he also notably portrayed a younger version of Frank in the 2002 comedy Frank McCluskey, C.I. On April 23, 2015, a decade after Everybody Loves Raymond came to a close, the 19-year-old Sweeten died by suicide. In the days after the shocking news broke, his family revealed more about what may have contributed to his untimely passing, with his cousin Jacqueline telling the Daily Mail, There is a history of depression in the family, all through. Many of them are on medication for depression. Since then, a pair of theaters in Los Angeles have been renovated and dedicated as a tribute to the late child star. Debuting in the fall of 1978, Diff'rent Strokes quickly cemented itself into the pop culture zeitgeist, and it has remained there ever since.
What you talking about, Willis?
The sitcom defied convention at the time by coupling the reserved and upper-class Drummond family with a pair of young orphans from the mean streets of Harlem. It also occasionally tackled heavier themes than might be suspected, considering the show's predominantly light-hearted tone. Among its talented cast was then 10-year-old Gary Coleman, who played Arnold Jackson, one of the two adoptees. Though this was certainly the most memorable role across Coleman's nearly 40-year-long career, it was far from the only one, as the actor appeared across various other sitcom projects. Despite achieving fame that some actors can only dream of, life behind the scenes was far from easy for Coleman. The actor struggled with a number of health ailments throughout his life, with the most significant being the kidney disease that contributed to his short stature. The 42-year-old Diff'rent Strokes star was taken off of life support days after suffering a serious fall in his Utah home. Unfortunately, Gary Coleman wasn't the only child actor from Diff'rent Strokes who has since passed away. Dana Plato, who played the Jackson brothers' sister Kimberly Drummond for 8 years on the series, got her start in a single, unnamed part in an episode of The $6 Million Man. She would go on to appear in films such as Exorcist II, The Heretic, as well as a number of minor appearances across television sitcoms and crime dramas. However, no role in her career reached the same heights as her time on Diff'rent Strokes. Unfortunately, the 90s weren't kind to Plato. In 1991, she was arrested for robbery. A year later, she was charged for forging Valium prescriptions. By 1999, she claims to have been sober for nearly a decade. That same year, however, she took a mixture of drugs and died as a result. At 34 years old, Plato became another victim of what has since been called the Diff'rent Strokes curse, thanks to the unfortunate series of events that have occurred to many of its former cast members. Perhaps best known for starring in The Lost Boys in 1987, Corey Haim quickly became one of the hottest stars of the 90s. The iconic vampire movie wasn't his first role, however. As a 12-year-old, Haim had starred alongside Christopher Cole and a young Robert Downey Jr. in the 1984 drama Firstborn, a whirlwind story of love, addiction, and manipulation. He'd spend his teenage years acting in films such as Stephen King's Silver Bullet, the coming-of-age drama Lucas, and the oddball body swap comedy Dream a Little Dream. Later on in his career, things took a downward turn for the former child star. Aside from his own personal addictions, Haim struggled with the effects of sexual abuse that he had suffered in his youth. On March 10, 2010, Haim was rushed to a Los Angeles hospital after collapsing in his family home. He was declared dead soon after. Despite a history of substance abuse being known at the time of his death, autopsy reports in the weeks that followed revealed that he hadn't died of an accidental or even intentional overdose. Instead, Haim had been killed by a bout of pneumonia. Any child of the 90s likely grew up watching episodes of Saved by the Bell. Likewise, they can almost certainly remember the character of Samuel Screech Powers. The high school sitcom saw Screech and the rest of his classmates trying to survive the day-to-day happenings of the fictional Bayside High. While the 12 years he spent as Screech meant that any other role would be untouchable in terms of pop culture impact, Diamond also appeared in episodes of The Wonder Years. After his time on Saved by the Bell came to a close, he gravitated towards projects that embraced his status as a former child star, with minor roles playing himself in films such as Big Fat Liar and Dickie Roberts, former child star. In January 2021, Diamond had recently turned 44 when he was diagnosed with an aggressive form of lung cancer. The beloved 90s star immediately began treatment for the disease, including a round of chemotherapy. Sadly, however, he died on February 1st, 2021, just several weeks after his diagnosis. While reflecting on the late actor's life and sudden death, his former manager, Roger Paul, stated, "Dustin Diamond was a character in and of himself, an unpredictable spitfire who always left us shocked but never left us bored." After getting his start as a young Kevin Buchanan on the soap opera One Life to Live, Jonathan Brandis spent the rest of the 80s appearing in minor roles on both the big and small screen. In 1990, Brandis' career really took off when he played Bill Denbrough in the two-part TV miniseries adaptation of Stephen King's It. In the same year, he played Bastian in The Neverending Story 2, The Next Chapter, and in 1993, he played the leading role in the sci-fi series Sequest DSV, alongside Jaws star Roy Scheider. Behind all the glitz and glam of Hollywood, and despite such a promising start to his career, Brandis' personal life was far from perfect, and the young actor died by suicide in November 2003. In the years since, both friends and relatives of the late star have shed a little light on his passing. His father, Greg Brandis, said in a 2021 interview with People magazine, "I look back now and in his 20s, he showed signs of manic depression. I hope that anyone suffering can go get help."
The amount of love that was there, and that he must have been going through so much pain.
Arriving in theaters in 1964 to a staggering reception at the domestic box office, Mary Poppins has since become one of the most recognizable titles ever produced by Disney, which, considering their extensive catalog, is truly impressive.
First of all, I would like to make one thing quite clear.
Yes?
I never explain anything.
The musical tale begins when a nanny skips out on the job of watching a pair of mischievous children, Michael and Jane, only for them to be visited by a mysterious woman who flies in on a magic umbrella. It goes without saying that Garber's role in Mary Poppins was his most acclaimed and memorable by far, and was released in between the two other movies he was in, The Three Lives of Thomasina and The Gnome-Mobile. Sometime after his career as an actor ended, however, an adult Garber found himself in India. While abroad, the former Mary Poppins star contracted hepatitis, which ultimately led to his death at the age of 21 on June 13, 1977. Born in 1947, Rusty Hamer found his way to his most recognizable role almost from the beginning of his career. At the age of 6, he landed a part on The Danny Thomas Show, which may be remembered by some viewers by its alternate title, Make Room for Daddy, before its 4th season rebrand. As traditional and American sitcom as they come, the long-running series saw entertainer Danny Thomas take on the role of Danny Williams, a New York performer who tries to balance his career in show business with his family back at home. Hamer starred as the Williams' son, Rusty, for all 11 seasons, and did later return for a sequel, Make Room for Granddaddy, in 1970. Hamer retired from acting after the series ended for good in 1971. Years later, and after effectively vanishing from public life, Hamer was sadly found dead. He had died by suicide. As relayed by the Los Angeles Times, while still reeling from the loss, Hamer's brother stated, "He didn't show any signs of this happening. It was just all of a sudden." He would go on to speculate that the stresses of being a young actor may have contributed to Rusty's troubles in adulthood, which at the time weren't as well recognized as they are today. If you or anyone you know is having suicidal thoughts, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline by dialing 988 or by calling 1-800-273-TALK 8255.